Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Vaping, your weekly resource for vaping news. Our show airs live on Tuesday nights from 10 p.m. midnight to midnight EST via YouTube live stream at youtube.com/Inside Vaping. The show is divided into two distinct segments. The first half being the more formal, cummerbund, and cufflinks portion. If you choose to participate in the second half, uncensored part of the show, you may join us exclusively on the Quest Vaping Network at www.vaperstv/questvaping. But be warned, Ed the Green has been known to drop it like it's hot. Hello, Ed. How are you doing today, sir?
What's going on, James? Doing pretty good,
Eventful week?
Yeah, I have a 3 and a 5-year-old. It's always eventful. It was a rush today, going to work, coming home. I'm the assistant coach for our girls' soccer team, so running around with a bunch of girls, coming home, giving them baths, and then here for you guys.
Excellent. And, of course, Dane. How are you doing today, Dane?
Excellent. Thank you very much. A very uneventful week here in the Valley of the Sun. It's been very quiet and very hot as usual.
That's a good thing. Well, at least the quiet part. I don't know about the heat. I don't think I could handle that kind of heat.
Oh, it's great. Feels good on the bones.
I don't know about that. I'm a cold weather person, so I had something happen this week that hasn't happened to me in probably 3 years. My credit card, one of my credit cards, my bank card, was stolen, and I think they must have gotten it through one of those swiper things, Dane. You know, those things that go on tackle. At first, I thought it was maybe the Home Depot thing that had happened, the credit card numbers that have been stolen, but I got it all sorted out. The bank was very accommodating, so that's a great thing. Tonight, we have a very special guest panelist with us. This is Zvaper, and he is a very well-known YouTube reviewer. His website is zvapor.com, and Zulfikar and I have, we've developed a friendship over the course of the last couple of years, and he's got a lot of knowledge with RBAs and mods, both regulated and mechanical devices. But one of the things that I appreciate the most is he has a very methodical approach to a given topic, it's very enlightening to watch some of these videos, Z. And I've never really told you this, but your approach is very unique. There's a lot of reviewers out there, but you definitely have a very unique approach, and we're delighted to have you with us tonight.
It's great to be here, James. Thank you, everyone, for having me on. And you make it sound so flowery. I don't know.
I know it's not all glamorous. Some people don't realize there's a lot of work that goes into reviews aside from just picking something up and holding it in front of the camera. There's a lot of work that goes into making something professional, and it definitely shows. But tell us a little bit about your journey, because that's one of the things we're trying to do here on Inside Vaping. We're trying to get perspectives from not only the beginning vapor, but also some of the advanced vapors, people who have been around for a while.
Right. So I started vaping 4 years ago, and honestly, I had tried everything to quit smoking. I even went on Chantix, as far as going on Chantix, and I had literally suicidal tendencies and all sorts of bad things. Then I quit the Chantix and I went back to cigarettes. And next thing you know, actually my brother-in-law's brother had an ego device, and he was, strutting with his ego. And I tried it, and I really liked it. Yeah. So my first device was actually a Sega-like. I still remember the brand. I think it was called Smoke Tip. And that was it. I mean, I literally just quit cigarettes from that day forward.
Wow.
And here we are now, 4 years later.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, too. I remember that transition from smoking to vaping, and for me it was very rapid because, I'd watched some of Nick Grimm Green's videos, and he loved 306s at the time, and I knew nothing about vaping. And I went and bought a GLV Super Mini and some Cisco low-resistance 306s, and dripped, which it's surprising that worked for me, because one of the things that I hear most from people who are transitioning off cigarettes is that they don't want that fuss of dripping or having to worry about, something leaking. But for me, it worked, and obviously, it's been kind of an evolution. What do you think is the greatest advance that you've seen within the last couple of years of vaping wise?
I think it's something similar to what you said. I mean, it's just vaping, 4 years ago was cumbersome. It wasn't easy. But things now, I mean, I say it in my reviews a lot, and I tell everybody who starts off, I tell them that I really envy you guys. You guys have regulated devices. You have your aero tanks, your, Nautiluses, which provide excellent vapes from the get-go. I remember I really suffered with my early vapes, and when I look back at it, I'm surprised I stuck with it. It was really tough, rough going.
Yeah.
So to me, the advancement is just good performance at a reasonable price from day one.
Yeah. And Ed, I don't think I ever asked you. You've been around for so long. What did you start on?
It was a two-piece, like a KR808.
Okay.
I can't even remember the brand name. It was at a convenience store that was right down the street from me, and it worked. But it was $75 for one battery,
Wow.
5 picocardos, and a charger.
Yeah.
$75.
And
And I ended
Dane,
up what?
Dane, what about you? What did you start on? Was it similar, like a Sigil-like, or?
Yeah, it was. It was the kit that Ed is talking about. I actually got it from a flea market type atmosphere where they had both. It was just the start of the Ego batteries as well. But the Ego battery itself was hollow. There were two 16 340s that went in there that made up the handle of this particular device. And I opted to not go with that one at first and went with a Sigilite that I could just screw the cartridges on instead.
Sure. Yeah, well, those transitional devices are very important. They're still important. We've got a huge story that we're going to be talking about with Reynolds American Group and one of their recent the CEO that was recently appointed, who has a history with Reynolds, and that's going to be one of our main topics of discussion tonight. It appears good on the surface, but it's not all good. So we're going to get into that. And again.
James, I got a question before that about Z. Z, how long ago did you start doing videos and reviewing products, and why?
I think I started in earnest about two-ish years ago. Yeah, a little more than 2 years ago, and I did it just because I like sharing stuff. I mean, honestly, I'm a nerd at heart. I mean, I'm from a tech background. James can relate. And, when nerds learn something new, they like this to show it off or to tell more people about it. So that's how it just started.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, for me, that's a big reason that I do it too. I mean, obviously, it's improved my life, and I'm free from smoking. But also, there's that slightly geeky aspect, especially Z, when we get into the RBAs and things like that. I mean, it's definitely it has a geeky aspect to it as well.
It does. It definitely does.
And here's two more. What was the first product you reviewed?
I think the Revolution V2, if I'm not mistaken, and a couple of Clearamizers, the Stardust, if I'm not mistaken.
And if you were to look, I don't know if you've looked back at I haven't looked at my first video in a long time. If you were to look back at it now, what would you think?
Of what? Of me or the video or the content?
I don't know. Everybody looks like, oh my God, my video was crap. What was I thinking?
Well, the thing is, I mean, like James said, that making videos is not easy because enunciating yourself and presenting, getting that style is tough. Back then, I was just blabbering on in front of a camera. That's how I see it now.
Yeah, and I look back at my early videos the same way, and that was when everything was forums. I mean, this whole Facebook thing is kind of a recent evolution, because everything started out on forums, and they still have a good following, but Facebook is where a lot of us have moved at this point. And it's a powerful obviously social media is a very powerful tool. You don't really have to look too much further than the current goings on in the NFL, which I won't get into, but whistleblowing is alive and well, and it's a good thing. A lot of times it holds organizations responsible for things that otherwise might get swept under the rug, which is not a good thing.
And I would like just to touch on that point a little bit. Is that Facebook is a fantastic platform to learn about vaping. But I've also recently, maybe 6 months ago, I figured out that Reddit is just as good.
Yeah, Reddit is great. Now that was one I was a little bit intimidated, Z, and I still am because of their Redditors and you have to admit there's a little bit of pretension there. It may be well deserved. I mean, I don't know. It's a little bit intimidating to me.
It is, and they're easy. They're very quick to cut you down. But at the same time, if it is a good place.
I'll have to carefully write an article and put it up there and see how it's received, because I don't handle rejection very well. So Z, the other thing we wanted to bring up is you also have your main line of business. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I was kind of interested in that. I didn't know what you did.
Yeah, well, let's say the viewers on YouTube know me as Zvaper, the Vapor. But I actually, I know it sounds funny coming from an IT background, but I actually make beauty products and soap for a living. So natural soap, similar to like what Lush makes. So that's what I make for a living.
Wow.
It's fun, surprisingly.
And
Never thought I'd like it, but
if somebody wanted information about those products, where could they find out more?
laveaffair.com, LAVE affair.com.
And I noticed he has some soaps that are shaped like cupcakes, which
That's cute.
Yeah, it's my artistic side, coming out. You gotta have a place to vent out all these emotions, right?
It's definitely lower in fat content than regular cupcakes, I'm sure, which is
Definitely.
a great thing. I don't think you should. I know my mom used to force feed me bars of soap at times. It was after I said words that Ed likes to say on the after hours portion of the broadcast.
Naughty words, yes.
Yes. By the way, Ed, this is for you. I am now Mr. Blue, and you are Mr. Green. I'm just letting you know. That's why I'm wearing a blue shirt. Ed can't see me right now too because of the way Skype is set up, but I am wearing a blue shirt.
I can see a two and a half minutes later on.
after a sizable delay. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started with our show here. Actually, before we even do that, I want to cover this. So we're going to be doing a giveaway. And this giveaway is for a wood parallel 18650 box mod. And this is the Jag box. It's made by Wick and Wire Vapes out of the Philippines. And it's one of the first box mods that I've seen out of the Philippines that has all the features that I would want as somebody who is a lower ohm vapor. So you can see the specs there. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to give you some highlights, it does have a PEEK insulator. PEEK is a high heat application material, and it's one of the better ones that's being used for insulators today and for 510. So the 510 has a PEEK insulator. It has copper pins, lead-free brass switch, lead-free brass 510 connector, all custom. Floating copper positive pin. If you look in this picture, you can see that the door actually swings in from the side or slides in from the side. It's held by magnets. I prefer this style of door to the one that is just held loosely on the device itself. So you have two different methods of retention. It's got some nice engravings on there. If you can see, it says Jagbox 1, and it says Vape Hard, and the opposite side says Philippines, I believe. Now, these are some newer pictures. If you look here, you'll see that the wood has a nicer finish on it. It actually has almost a semi-polish finish, and he's applied some kind of wood oil or conditioning oil. So these things are shaping up really nicely. There you can see another one of the new pictures. And there are the custom 510 pieces. So a lot of thought that went into this particular device, and we're excited to be able to offer one as a giveaway. Right now, we're only asking that you subscribe to the channel. So if you go to www.youtube.com/Inside Vaping, it's right down there on the lower third. and you subscribe, and just go ahead and comment on this video, and your comment is considered your entry. So just go ahead and comment, and we're going to pull an entry at random. And that is pretty much all you need to do.
And let me just add something that, I mean, whoever wins this is going to love it, because I'm a big fan of box mods. I'm just pulling out a couple of box mods that I have in front of me, and I'm a big wood box mod lover. So yeah, it's a great price.
Yeah, and I got this one, Z. I think you've probably seen pictures of this one. This one is 3D printed, and it's not, it may not be impressive up close, but the performance is great. So it's got a standard 2-bay 18650 set, and this is parallel, and it also has a voltage meter on the side, and you can switch that on or off, and it measures your voltage under load. Fat Daddy Vapes 5. But
yeah, it's funny you mentioned 3D printed, because I actually have a 3D printed box mod here
Do you?
too. So yes, I do.
Let's see that one. Go ahead and hold it up. Let me put you full screen there. Oh, very cool. That's almost like a translucent plastic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a translucent plastic, magnetized doors, and this is the Yeehee SX350 chip.
A lot of people are saying really good things about the SX350. I still have not tried one. Ed, have you tried one yet?
I am not going to.
You're not going to.
I'm a DNA fanboy. I'm a DNA fanboy. I can't. That's what I like.
Yeah, and they've got
it's coming up, so I'm sure I'll try one there.
Yeah, they've got a new product coming out as well too. We'll have to talk about that in an upcoming episode, or at least theorize about it, because I know a lot of that information is very closely guarded. But we're going to go ahead and get into our show topics tonight here. So I'm going to go ahead and load up the screen. Let me go ahead and make this transition smoothly if I can. And one of the first stories we're going to bring up is an update to the John Ashton story. If you remember last week, we talked about Professor John Ashton and his resignation after some vile tweets directed at opponents of his and advocates for e-cigarette use. He is now back in his position. As of Monday, this was a tweet by Alison Pollock, Professor of Public Health Research and Policy at Queen Mary University of London. John Ashton should be back at FPH on Monday as board has recommended. Our president campaigns on vital public health issues. And if we scroll further down, you can see this very funny caricature of Ashton. And if you look at this here, it says XXL FPH whitewash pack removes and helps resent valid complaints. Ashton damage control formula deletes tweets and says sorry, just like nothing ever happened. So this is kind of classic here. This guy is just out of control. Again, just a very poor showing of the way he really feels about people who oppose his opinion. Yeah, it's disappointing that he's back in place, but not all that surprising. The next thing we have here is, let me go ahead and switch over to this. Oh, wait, that's actually the wrong screen. Roger, if you're seeing this, I threw this in here as a concession to you. We have a viewer named Roger who absolutely loves pies. So these are some gratuitous shots of HD pies for Roger. And I am not responsible for what he may do with this on replay.
Oh, it's rhubarb and strawberry.
I know
good.
That looks delicious to me, Dane, because I'm a big fan of rhubarb, and strawberry pies. So, this is not a direct update to the ECC cease and desist issue that we talked about last week, but at the same time, it's very fascinating. Apparently, a judge has ruled in a Staten Island man had been unsuccessful attempting to serve his wife legal papers, legal notice declaring his decision to stop paying child support. This was for an adult. This is his son, who is now 21. He wanted to stop paying child support. He couldn't find her. She evaded him. She was no longer at the address she previously listed. And this judge decided that there's no reason her active social media account with Facebook shouldn't count as a legal contract. And the judge agreed. So he said the idea that physically handing someone a piece of paper is the only way to serve notice is archaic. So yes, you can now be served papers via Facebook. I don't know. That's just a little bit scary to me. I mean, I don't know. Call me jaded, but I kind of liked the fact that previously, if somebody wanted to serve you papers, they had to actually make their way to your house or stalk you and try to find out where you were. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it brings new meaning to you've been served. So then do they just broadcast a message to your Facebook friends and notify them that you've been served? I mean, what?
I don't know.
We've taken the human out of humanity.
Yeah. That's. I would hope that this is one of those situations where they'll private message you and it goes to the other folder, and they're not just blasting it out there on your wall for everybody to see. Because I don't know if I want dirty laundry aired out there.
I mean, yeah,
You'll
exactly.
have constant
you'll get a
private
tweet.
messages. Yeah. What did you get served for? You'll be inundated with messages.
And then this is the other thing. So the next story that we have here is about a brick and mortar owner who was arrested for selling THC wax. And I know some of you have already seen this because I got some feedback on Facebook about it. But this is an article dated Thursday, the 18th. Okay, and this shop owner, Norman Bosley, who owns a vape shop called Vivid Vaping Company at the Eagle Ridge Mall, and this is in Florida. Well, basically an undercover officer walked in and discussed with Bosley these vaporizing devices and uses for them. And Bosley freely discussed the use of THC wax, dab wax, in these e-cigarettes. During the conversation, Bosley opened a drawer behind his display counter and removed a plastic sheet with dabs of wax on it. He gave the dabs THC wax to the detective. They further discussed the undercover detective purchasing THC wax at a future date. So Bosley then took this detective to a Lids store. If you're familiar with Lids, they sell all the different hats. They're a little mall store. And another employee there sold him more THC wax. And this guy, Bosley, was subsequently arrested. He'd been in the Polk County Jail on 11 previous occasions on a variety of charges, including withholding child support, worthless checks, disorderly conduct, failure to appear in court, DWLSR, which I think is driving while license suspended, restricted, aggravated assault, and violation of an injunction for protection. So this guy has a pretty, sordid past, per se. But I want to talk to my panelists a little bit about this because this is kind of a hot topic, and we're going to get to this later as well. But what do you guys think of the people that would say we need to embrace those who support marijuana use and seek to legalize it, and we need to band together with them because they're motivated and they're many in number? Because personally, my viewpoint of this is that there's already kind of a negative connotation associated with smoking, obviously, and vaping through extension, just because it looks similar to the untrained eye, even though the devices may be different. A lot of times when they see us blowing clouds out or even just vaping normally, they perceive that as smoke, even though it isn't. But especially with marijuana use, my question is, do you think it might do more harm than good, considering things haven't been regulated yet?
Well, if I just may add something, I have noticed that a lot of the head shops these days are sort of, say, branching out into vaping. That's one thing. And second thing is that, you can go on Alibaba and see it yourself, but it seems that there are these wax burners, I guess that's what you would call them, or the globes that you add onto the egos, and you can actually administer this dab, get a hit off of that using an ego. So I think the issue is that there is some sort of technology overlap, but you've got a good point. I mean, if you associate yourself with the, say, marijuana users, you kind of complicate the issues.
Sure.
It's a very touchy subject.
Right. And Dane, I know you can speak to that as well. I know that's popular in your area to some extent, correct?
Yeah, it is. Medicinal marijuana is legal in this state, and people buy their devices to use THC wax in from vape shops. They tend to go to vape shops more than smoke shops because the vape shops are a little cheaper on their gear. You're spot on about it being very similar to a regular e-liquid vaping device, as the most popular unit that's out there now is the Atmos Raw. The Atmos Raw you can use a couple of different ways. You can use the wax, you can use herbal content in it, and you can also screw on a clearomizer that's made for THC liquid as well. So all of those things come in that kit, and to the new user that's coming into the e-cigarette market looking specifically for e-cigs, this is a pretty attractive product to those folks because of the cross-platform uses that they can use it for. And I'm not in favor of selling them there. I think the medicinal marijuana shop should probably carry them for one, or at least have some lying around so that they can explain what they are and where to get them from, because there are dispensaries here that sell THC wax as well. But it is almost indiscernible, and I've seen them all over, especially my town where I'm at, and it is absolutely almost impossible to tell if someone is using an e-cig or an herbal vaporizing pen.
Yeah, and that's really my concern. Is you obviously have the ants that are approaching this head on and saying that there's a plethora of reasons why why vaping should be something that is banned or heavily restricted. And of course, they're citing the flavors, and they're citing dual use scenarios. And of course, what that leads to, and what it almost led to over in the UK, was having to be moved to closed systems. So basically, if you didn't have a cig-alike, or you didn't have encapsulated cartridge that was non-refillable, then it wouldn't be legal. And that's not a situation we want to find ourselves in, because that is just going to line the pockets of big tobacco. And all of this innovation and all of these mom and pop businesses and these wonderful businesses that are doing everything's right. They're getting their e-liquid tested, and they're making their devices properly. You'll see those disappear, I believe. We'll get into that a little bit later. But one of the important things to remember here is that right now especially, I don't think this is the time to embrace another, and I hesitate to call it subculture, but at the same time, we're viewed that way too, Z, to some extent. Especially sub-omers and some of the things that have happened recently. The media kind of views us as kind of a fringe culture. And I wouldn't like to see things further diluted by people then wondering whether, when I walk down the street, I'm vaping THC oil out of this. So
I totally understand, and I do agree with you. But I just want to touch again on the point of the media, is that, I mean, it's the media, right? I mean, you can't, that's what they do, but I really feel that they just over sensationalize a lot of things. The case where, let's say, somebody gets hurt because of an exploding battery, they focus on the fact that the battery exploded, not the fact that maybe the person was not using the battery correctly or overcharging it or things like that. But they never focus on that part.
Right.
Or perhaps the battery is a substandard, say, eco mod that was bought from China. It was just, they focus on something. They focus on that point, and that leads me to believe that there's some ulterior motive behind that, and I don't like that.
And for me, mixing them together just right now is not good. Unfortunately, in most states, marijuana is illegal. So is this by getting together with the marijuana users. We're going to band together. We're going to both fight for both of our rights. Like you're saying in the media, is the e-cig community, are people going to see it as, oh, you can use these for weed? That's why they're getting together with the marijuana. I don't think it's a really good time right now for us to get together with a product that is illegal.
Yeah.
Right now, we're still legal. We want to try and keep it that way.
Yeah.
Well, but that's a good point. Now, here's the thing, and I was just thinking about this point when you were speaking, is that the marijuana advocates are definitely doing something right, because marijuana has traditionally been illegal, but lately there's been a groundswell of movement that, where a couple of states now have started legalizing marijuana, because say they could prove that marijuana, to prove to a certain extent, or prove to an extent where the state legalizes it, that marijuana is beneficial. Perhaps we as e-cig users need to employ a similar methodology to, maybe I would say it might end up being as a per state legal type system, the way how marijuana is done. That could be a way out.
I know when marijuana will be legal. When Philip Morris starts making their own, then it'll be legal.
That's a no-brainer.
Unfortunately, it's money talks. I mean, to me personally, marijuana is definitely no worse than drinking alcohol and getting belligerent. I mean, I've never run into someone who was high that wanted to pick a fight. They're like, dude, you got some nachos? No, I just.
Yeah. No, exactly, and you're right. It is money talks. It's the lobbying, and it's just a dirty game. In the end, it is a dirty game.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, this is probably not going to change. It's probably just going to increase because obviously, the attraction to partaking of substances this way is that it's a little bit more covert than lighting up a joint or something like that. And Dane, I know you said the same thing. You said somebody was using this in your close vicinity, and what were your impressions? You didn't even really know what was going on initially.
No. And the first thing that came to my mind when I saw them actually, just taking a drag off the vaporizer is, wow, they're getting like zero vapor out of that thing. There's not very much coming out of there at all.
VG.
Yeah, that's what I felt like saying. You need some better e-liquid, man.
Yeah.
But it was just really almost non-existent smell. There was very, very little. If anything, it smelled like a bad RY4. It really did. That was really all it smelled like. A little sweet and mostly bitter, and that was about it. There was no way I could have been able to tell that there was THC in that device.
Wow. Well, I think we've exhausted that topic, so we're going to go ahead and move on. And Dane, I know we were going to do a video, but I'm getting some reports from people that the feed is really choppy, so I don't even think I'm going to play the video. So let's just kind of discuss this next one here.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Alibaba went public this week. And while in the grand scheme of vaping, it may not seem like a very big deal, but if you look at Alibaba's site and its offerings, it actually is kind of a big deal, because the first question that came to my mind when I saw this story is, I wonder how much of their revenue is made from e-cigarette and e-cigarette products. And I find that very, very interesting. I know that they sell a myriad of things on Alibaba, and just about everything you could possibly imagine. But the e-cigarette market from China is a very big financial sector of this market. And I had wondered how much of that was actually theirs. And if that's the case, the logical questions I have is, will this set a precedence for Chinese trading companies that include electronic cigarettes in their offerings to the overseas market? And with deeming regulations coming in the near future, will the U.S. try to limit or tax or overtax the amount of import of e-cigs for companies like Alibaba?
Yeah.
Well, my question is if they're if the e-cig market for Alibaba is that substantial, say, who knows what a percentage, would it be another ally?
It is China, and let's face it, there are some serious political strains between the U.S. and China, and to embrace the market, especially an e-cigarette market from China. I mean, we all know about Apple and other electronic companies that deal with China, but this is a little different. This product falls under syntax in a lot of places, and I'm not sure that the U.S. government would look too favorably upon the market being flooded with Chinese product.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think is an eventuality. If provided they're allowed to go. Well, they made the initial public offering, so they are now. I think somebody compared it to Amazon. They are larger than Amazon, correct?
Correct.
Because I haven't read that much of the article. But one of the reasons that I know, my perception of Alibaba is based solely on what they sell related to e-cigarettes. So, my stepdaughter was over the other day, and she was talking about buying buttons because she's a fashion designer, and she buys buttons off of Alibaba and snaps and zippers and things like that. And she said that it is huge. I mean, when you're talking about small businesses or smaller unit orders, that is where most people get their products from China when they're ordering from China.
Yeah, and I would agree, because I mean, I'm in the soap business, and there are a couple of raw materials that I do get from Alibaba for my business, and like you said, they're absolutely huge. They literally sell everything under the sun. You want a toilet, you can find it on Alibaba. It's not a problem, as long as you meet their MOQ.
Yeah, I don't want to have to buy 10 or 15 toilets and pay DHL shipping. I think that would be prohibitively expensive for a $5 toilet, which is probably what they sell them for per unit.
I could use them during the Super Bowl game at the house.
All the toilets?
Yeah, just have a line of them so we don't miss anything.
Yeah, my wife was telling me about this. So for our anniversary, we're going to this fancy hotel, and they actually have a mirror that has a TV inset into the mirror. And she's like, I don't know why you would need that. And then I'm like, well, hello, Sunday, football games.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to miss anything. You got to see every play.
Well, it's more for Monday, to watch the Monday night game, because all the garbage food you ate for Sunday night's game.
Oh, that's right. It's clearing out.
It's coming out on Monday.
Hey, good point.
You could probably buy enough stomach products from Alibaba to offset that problem. So you add them together for a bigger discount.
So we've got, let's go ahead and get to the meat of our show here, which is the Reynolds American new CEO. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that here. Let me go ahead and pull that screen up because this is a pretty important topic here. Let's see. Here we go. So the Reynolds CEO came out of retirement to lead the largest acquisition ever by a woman. Now she's betting on cigarettes without tobacco. So this is from Fortune.com. And this lady, Susan Cameron, she stopped smoking conventional cigarettes a decade ago and now uses and promotes electronic cigarettes. Smoking harms people, says Cameron, articulating the word as she draws on a Vuse, Reynolds' new electronic cigarette. Now she is a champion of vaping, a term that has not yet made it into Merriam-Webster but means inhaling with a vaporizer. It is what people do with those battery-powered, operated e-cigarettes like Vuse that heat nicotine-laced e-liquid into vapor. Without toxic tobacco or tar, they are still addictive and not necessarily safe. Conflicting research comes out daily, yet e-cigarettes have taken the market by storm and already add up to a $2.5 billion industry. As she rolls out Vuse nationally this year, Cameron wants Reynolds to become, she says, the vapor authority. Now, these are their words and her words. If e-cigarettes are a game changer, this is interesting because this is really, and I don't know what happened to my screen here. I think I just flipped it over. If e-cigarettes are a game changer, as Cameron says, in the long declining cigarette industry, why is she doubling down on tobacco by buying Lorillard? It's transformational, the CEO says about the deal. In addition to Newport, Lorillard sells blue e-cigs, currently the #1 e-cigarette in U.S. sales. Cameron plans to sell blue to Imperial in order to clear antitrust scrutiny, but she contends the rich cash flow from Newport, America's top menthol brand, will help Reynolds. So on the surface, this article makes it seem like this lady, Susan Cameron, is, for electronic cigarettes. She's for vapors. She's saying regular cigarettes are bad. That is the appearance. However, that is not the reality. So basically, what we need to look at is this Motley Fool article. And let me go ahead and pull this up. And there we go. We'll transition to that. And this is the relevant information here. Reynolds American is lobbying the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for tighter restrictions on the e-vapor market. It may seem counterintuitive, but Reynolds American's lobbying efforts could end up helping it and Altria Group boost the profitability of their e-cigarette and combustible cigarette operations, as what they would suggest would hurt competitors offering different types of vapor devices. If the Food and Drug Administration implements Reynolds American's policy suggestions, Reynolds American and Altria could dominate the market. And this is the key point here, folks. So they are lobbying to have tighter restrictions put into place. And you remember we were talking about closed systems. We were talking about these devices like Cigalikes that used specific cartridges, and they weren't refillable. And that's actually what we're going to be faced with if this goes through. And Dane, you had some points too.
Yeah, there are some interesting points in this article. Vapors, tanks, and mods make up about 36% of the $2.2 billion e-vapor market, according to a research note from just this past April. Reynolds American argues that VTMs should be prohibited because, unlike Cigalikes, enthusiasts, like our community, could easily modify the contents of the cartridges to include cannabis or new flavors. There's that cannabis reference again. Yeah. Or new flavors that may appeal to underage smokers. The company argues that at the very least, the FDA should regulate VTMs the same way it regulates Cigalikes. It may seem strange that Reynolds American is fighting so hard against e-vapor enthusiasts making mods, but it makes business sense. Wells Fargo tobacco analyst Bonnie Herzog reports that the typical VTM user is a former cigarette smoker who first tried e-cigs and Cigalikes and then abandoned them for tanks and mods. VTMs usually offer stronger batteries, longer battery life, and a superior vaping experience than Vuse and Mark 10, according to Herzog. This means that Reynolds American and Altria, and to me this is a very important point and something that they are adamantly against, they would have to continually upgrade their technology in order to keep pace with the evolving e-vapor market.
Right, and this is the thing. So these VTMs, as they call it, are already making their presence felt. So when they're saying VTMs, they're talking about like our loose juice, our e-liquids, our mods, our tanks, things that are refillable. If you wanted to divide it into two categories, you have refillables, and then you have the closed loop systems like the Cigalikes. So those refillables, 1/3 of the 2.2 billion e-vapor market. Continued growth of these products could result in a fragmented market that does not confer a durable competitive advantage to any one company. Moreover, the flavors and variable nicotine content could make VTMs a viable alternative to combustible cigarettes, thereby encroaching on Reynolds American's and Altria's cash cow. So this is the main point here, folks, is that this woman is not necessarily for vapors everywhere. She is out to get the largest market share that she can possibly get for Altria and for Reynolds American's products. So don't be fooled by that.
Yep, her yearly bonus depends on it.
Exactly. There you go. Just yet another analogy to the whole NFL thing with Roger Goodell and his 35 million or whatever he makes. Boy. So one of the biggest things that would be affected by this potentially, if this happened, if they regulated, if you think about it, what do your brick and mortar stores sell, Dane? They sell e-liquid,
Right.
they sell mods, they sell Clearos. They don't really sell. I mean, last time I was in Alt Smoke, they had Cigalikes, they had some pre-filled Cardos, but by and large, I think that makes up a pretty small portion of their sales. Most people walk out with an Ego and Clearomizers and things like that. So that is going to affect brick and mortars probably more than anything else.
And to add to that, I've never been to an e-cig shop, a vapor shop that sold Views, Blue, or any Mark 10. They don't sell those brands.
Yeah.
Right.
Who sells those? It's grocery
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven, grocery stores,
Yep. Gas
Walgreens,
stations.
gas
Yeah.
stations, and smoke shops. There you go, smoke shops. So you
Exactly.
have you can fill your order with Reynolds American, and you can get all your cigarettes, and you can get your Views kits. So it's a win-win for them, folks. I mean, product placement. So they're planning on taking over. So this is from an article on CNN. Retail store sales continue to be one of the fastest growing segments of the vapor market. In fact, the number of vape stores have tripled over the last year. According to a recent report issued by Wells Fargo, the e-cigarette market has decreased 400 million from 1.4 billion to 1 billion. That's the e-cigarette market. So when I'm saying that, I'm talking about these disposables here. That is what they're classifying it as. So it's decreased 400 million this year. Okay. Vaporizers, tanks, and mods have increased 400 million from 1.1 billion to 1.5, has grown to be a $1 billion market. So that is the market that this is targeting. If these big cigarette companies have their way, that is the market that would be eliminated. And that is the key takeaway here, is that this is really insidious. This is an end around. So the FDA regulations or the deeming regulations as is wouldn't necessarily affect us to this extent. But if the cigarette companies have their way, this could be disastrous.
Yeah, it certainly is setting themselves up to corner the market in a very crafty fashion. And I think a lot of those analysts and a lot of those big tobacco executives has spent a serious amount of time studying the vape community as it stands now. They know a lot of us are very ADD with our articles because we're inundated with information on a regular basis about e-cigs. And if they put out little sound bites here and there that, oh, we're pro-vaping, we're behind you 100%, show up at a few local legislative hearings, and all of a sudden, they're an ally, but in reality, they're looking to strong arm the biggest segment of the market and eliminate their competition completely behind closed doors with meetings with Congress.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. The only thing we can really do is be vigilant here, so we have to watch and see how that story develops. But the reality is that, the big tobacco obviously has very strong lobbyists and a lot of money to throw at this.
And I think one of the most important takeaways of this story is we've all heard throughout our advocacy efforts from the very beginning that big tobacco has the money. They can buy their way in, but big tobacco doesn't want to share the marketplace. Right. And that's become abundantly clear now.
Yeah. All right. So the final story that we have, I don't know, Z, is there anything you wanted to add to this?
No, I just want to expand on what Dane said, is that I think that, advocacy and making sure that you're on top of, let's say, KISA and supporting them is, I think, very important for us vapors. I mean, I'm not saying go and start picketing on the streets, but any small gesture helps, whether it's money, whether it's helping them out, anything like that really does help. It goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, very wise words. So let's go ahead and let's move on to the next story here. This is our final story for the first hour of the broadcast. And this is a follow-up to a story that we talked about last year, which was Darlington County Corrections. And Darlington actually had, they were one of the first correctional facilities to give their inmates, e-cigarettes. And if you think about it, when you're in a situation like that, there's very few creature comforts. And a lot of these guys were heavy smokers when they were on the street, and then they were institutionalized, and they no longer had access to cigarettes through traditional means. So what they would resort to a lot of times is contraband. They had a black market, and basically they would purchase cigarettes and bring them in through illicit means. And a lot of times fights would break out. I mean, heck, it's a form of currency in a lot of prisons and correctional facilities. So this is a follow-up on an article. I'm going to go ahead and play this video, and hopefully you guys can hear this.
Inmates in county prisons face steep penalties for bringing in contraband like cigarettes.
However, one local jail combats that with electronic cigarettes. News 13's Matt Petrillo is live at the Darlington County Detention Center. Matt, this jail, I understand, is the first in the state to offer the e-cigs, right?
Bob, that's right. Contraband used to be a big problem here at the detention center. So much, in fact, the state had slashed its funding. But contraband dropped significantly.
Yeah, let me see if I can
after it
raise the
introduced
volume a little bit.
e-cigarettes. For Tom Tyner, life inside the Darlington County Detention Center can be difficult. He says he has little contact with family and misses his mom.
The only thing that stresses is if you get an old lady on the outside, worrying about what they're doing.
Uh-oh. Did Flash just crash on me? I think it did. I think I just lost Flash. Doggone. Let's try this again.
Inmates in county prisons face steep penalties for bringing in contraband like cigarettes.
However, one local jail combats that with electronic cigarettes. News 13's Matt Petrillo is live at the Darlington County Detention Center. Matt, this jail, I understand, is the first in the state to offer the e-cigs, right?
Bob, that's right. Contraband used to be a big problem here at the detention center. So much, in fact, the state had slashed its funding. But contraband dropped significantly after it introduced e-cigarettes. For Tom Tyner, life inside the Darlington County Detention Center can be difficult. He says he has little contact with family and misses his mom.
The only thing that stresses is if you get an old lady on the outside, worrying about what they're doing.
To add to his stress, he wasn't allowed to smoke cigarettes in jail. But then, to his surprise, the county sheriff's office offered him and other inmates to purchase electronic cigarettes.
When I first found out about it, I was like, what? We get to smoke in jail? That's new. That's a new one on me, because I ain't never been able to smoke in jail.
Neither has any jail in South Carolina, but Major Mitch Stanley says he thought of the idea after trying to find a way to bring more revenue to the Darlington County Sheriff's Office.
The inmates loved it from the start. They wanted to know if they could buy them the first day.
Major Stanley says he expected the e-cigarettes to bring in about $5,000 in profit the first year. It brought in 3 times that amount.
We use that money that the inmates spend on the e-cigarette to buy the essentials, food and things of that sort that we have to normally use taxpaying dollars for.
These cigarettes also lowered the amount of contraband brought into the jail.
It cuts down on the fights because of the nicotine addiction.
Inmates say they're happy the sheriff's office introduced the cigarettes.
I was really surprised that we could get them. I was happy we could get them.
Almost like a real cigarette. I just wish it would last a little bit longer, you know.
Now, those e-cigarettes the sheriff's office buys are specialty made for correctional facilities, so inmates can't use them as weapons. Now, as far as profits, the sheriff's office says they expect to surpass that 15 grand it made during its first year. Reporting live at the Darlington County Detention Center, I'm Matt Petrillo, News 13.
All right, thanks a lot, Matt.
All right, so that's the article, and basically the big thing there is that they were able to create a revenue stream without using taxpayer money. And at the same time, they were giving these inmates something that they really craved. So again, reducing the incidences of violence and generating revenue I think it's all good. I don't know, Dane. What do you think?
I agree. He answered one of the questions I had at the end, is if they could use them as a weapon or a device that could start a fire. And I would imagine that they could only buy Cigalikes, correct? Because if they had open tanks with clear misers and things like that, then you run the risk of using the very bad and very evil THC wax and liquid, where THC wax could be carried on someone's person and it
Right.
would be almost undetectable to anyone.
Yeah, and that is true. I mean, when we talked about it last year, there was one particular company that had developed these cigarettes for these institutions, or these e-cigs for them, and they are a very tightly produced device that is not user serviceable. It's completely disposable, non-refillable, and in that scenario, that closed system makes sense. Not out here.
Right. Right. Agreed.
Yeah, so anyway, we did want to talk about that. Z, go ahead and give us some more information. What have you got coming up in upcoming reviews here?
Well, this 3D printed box mod is coming up for review, so I'm excited to do that. I've been using it for a couple of months now and really gotten to know the device, so I'm comfortable doing the review now.
Where did that come from?
That came from landhvapes.com. Kevin, he makes them.
Yeah, I actually just got a mechanical the other day that I am going to be doing a review on, and this is the Bellwether mod. I don't know if you've seen this, Z. It's pretty interesting. It's got a very interesting button design. If you look at this, let me see if I can adjust my focus here. You have a locking ring at the bottom, and this locking ring twists, of course, to lock the button, but it is not a conventional bottom button. Right here is the button. So that's locked, and I slide this ring, and then I put it in, and it's unlocked. So it's a side bottom button design. And very smooth action. The lock ring is actually almost too smooth, like I'm accidentally moving it with my finger, and I don't know if that's by design, but I need to talk to the modder and but the engraving is very, very nice on here. Again, very nicely.
That's a nice looking
finished.
button. Very,
Yeah.
very innovative.
Yep. All right. So let me go ahead and adjust my focus back out. So Z, if people want more information, again, they go to zvaper.com, and your YouTube channel is
youtube.com/z00100.
Well, we're delighted that you graced us with your presence tonight. Any final words that you want to say here?
I just want to say, gentlemen, the pleasure was all mine. Really was.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Z, for joining us. And I know, I believe you said that your kids are going to be there soon. So
Yep.
I know you have to
Exactly.
make an exit.
Yep, exactly. So thanks, guys, for having me on. Keep on.
Thanks
vaping.
much, Zeke. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Yep,
Yep,
Thanks.
thank you.
Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and transition here. And I'm
All right, I
sure.
got one story to read here. It's not really a story, but it's a request from our viewers.
Okay.
To all of our viewers and subscribers, how would you like to share your vaping journey on this very broadcast? Inside Vaping wants to hear your story. We're looking for vapors to share their story on our show. Tell us how vaping has changed your life, how and why you started using electronic cigarettes, and how this product has helped you free yourself from traditional tobacco. Tell us a little bit about the transition, what you started out on, those types of things. Send us an email at insidevaping@gmail.com, and we'll contact you with details on how your story could appear right here on Inside Vaping.
Excellent. And our screen regions are screwed up now. We definitely need to work on a better system for that. But hey, folks, we're learning every week here. So hopefully you've taken something away from the first portion of the show here. We are going to continue on Quest Vaping. So if you go to www.vapors.tv/Quest Vaping, you can join in.
Absolutely. And thanks for all of our YouTube subscribers and viewers there. And also thank you to our new SoundCloud subscribers. Our show is available on SoundCloud at Inside Vaping if you do a search there. And we will have the entire audio portion of this broadcast up every week.
Excellent.
And a quick note for the contest. You cannot comment on this video yet. I had a message from somebody that were like, I can't comment yet. I'm like, you have to wait until we're done,
Yeah.
and then the video, I guess, is uploaded or
Yeah.
put on. Then you can comment on the video.
So, yeah, wait until it's live. It'll be live here in another hour, and then we will go from there. But we will see you on the Quest Vaping Network, hopefully. And again, thanks for watching this week, folks. And please tune in again next week.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.